The black bike purred like a beast outside the quaint white gate, its matte frame catching the late afternoon sun. Becky leaned out of the window, her hair falling past her shoulders, lips parted slightly as her eyes followed the woman dismounting. Jet black suit pants hugged long legs. A white button-down shirt tucked cleanly under a charcoal blazer. A silver watch winked on her left wrist. She looked like a professor straight out of some dark academia fantasy, except this one had just roared into the driveway on a custom 750cc bike. She pulled off her helmet. And Becky's heart forgot how to beat. Freyan was tall, almost too tall, and carried herself with a calm intensity. Her hair was perfectly side-parted, not a strand out of place. She wasn't beautiful in the regular sense. No, she was something worse, composed. That made her dangerous. Becky stood frozen by the curtain, still in her peach-colored loungewear with lace trim, completely unaware that her soft feminine presence was about to cause the most composed woman to unravel slowly over the next few months. "Becky! Come down, she's here," her mother called, excitement in her voice. Becky adjusted her neckline, tugged the lace up an inch higher, cheeks pink. Freyan was already seated at the table when Becky entered. Their mothers were chatting in the kitchen. Her father, thankfully, wasn't home. It was just the three of them in the room. Just them now. Freyan stood to greet her with a quiet smile. Her voice was soft, deep in tone, reserved. "You must be Becky," Freyan said, extending a hand. Her handshake was firm. Her palm warm. Becky's own hand was much smaller, and she felt ridiculously aware of it. "Why yeah. I am." Becky hated how nervous she sounded. Her voice felt too high in contrast to Fran's. "I'm Fran. Your new tutor." Freyan gave her a slight nod, looking at her in that still, unreadable way. Her eyes, God, her eyes, were sharp, but not cruel. They were focused. Scientific. Like she was analyzing her already. "You rode that bike here?" Becky asked, pointing to the window. "Yeah. It's faster than the bus," Freyan replied with a slight smirk. The first crack in her professional demeanor. Becky blinked. Was that flirtation or just sarcasm? She didn't know yet. It started with English literature. Freyan was tutoring her in grammar, reading comprehension, and preparing her for competitive entrance tests. She was smart. Too smart. She explained sentence construction with a kind of clarity that made Becky feel like she'd never understood language before. Her explanations were neat. She wrote in straight lines even on blank paper. Her handwriting? Perfectly balanced between cursive and print. But it wasn't just her intelligence. It was her stillness. Freyan never fidgeted. Never interrupted. Always looked directly into Becky's eyes when she spoke. She listened, and Becky, who usually over-explained things to feel understood, found herself talking less, just watching Freyan's expressions instead. On the third day, Becky wore a cropped white cardigan over her tank top. She wasn't trying to do anything. But she noticed Freyan pause. Just once. Her eyes flicked down and then up again. Fast. Like a glitch. They both pretended it didn't happen. But things began to shift by the second week. Becky had dropped her pen under the table and crouched to pick it up, crawling slightly toward Freyan's chair. And when she looked up, Freyan had instinctively shifted back, knees apart. Becky saw something she wasn't supposed to see. There was something. Something bulging ever so slightly under those suit pants. It wasn't sharp or vulgar. It wasn't intentional. It was just there, as natural as her wrist or her collarbones. And Freyan? She froze. Then immediately crossed her legs. Neither of them said anything. But both knew. The silence that followed was loaded. And Becky couldn't stop her cheeks from heating up. The next lesson was the most awkward yet. Becky was quieter, flustered, fumbling with her words. She didn't know how to ask, or if she should. But her mind spiraled. Was it a mistake? Was it a prosthetic? No, her reaction had been too real, too human. And Freyan had blushed. Actually blushed. That perfect composed face, her ears had turned red. The lesson was on poetic metaphors, but every line Freyan read out sounded like a metaphor for something else entirely. Duality, Freyan was saying, is when two truths exist in one body. Sometimes, contradiction is what makes the character whole. Becky's breath hitched. Do you relate to that?" she asked softly. Freyan looked up, eyes guarded. Her jaw tensed. "I think we all do," she said quietly. After that day, things got tender. Becky didn't press her. She didn't joke. She didn't giggle about it. She didn't even change how she looked at Fran. If anything, she watched her more carefully. And Freyan noticed. She noticed the way Becky sat closer now. The way she dressed a little softer, cashmere cardigans, long skirts, soft pinks, satins. She noticed how Becky asked things like, "Do you like being a tutor? Did you ever feel out of place growing up?" And finally, "Has anyone ever made you feel like you didn't have to explain yourself?" Freyan's throat tightened at that one. Her pen stilled mid-sentence. And for the first time, she answered without thinking. "No." One night, it rained heavily, and Freyan was soaked when she arrived. Her white shirt clung to her chest and the sharp line of her collarbones. Becky's mouth went dry at the sight. Freyan stood at the door, unsure if she should enter, wet boots dripping on the mat. "You can use the bathroom," Becky offered, voice gentle. "I'll bring you a towel." Freyan gave a soft nod. She peeled off her blazer and stepped inside. In the hallway mirror, Becky caught her reflection and her breath caught again. Freyan in just her soaked shirt and slacks looked like something out of a movie. Every inch of her was lean, tall, and quietly powerful. And yet there was something so awkward about her, too. She stood like she didn't know what to do with herself, like she never felt quite right in her body even though she was stunning. Becky brought her the towel and their hands touched. The silence between them buzzed with something unspoken. Freyan took the towel. "Thanks. Do you want to borrow something dry?" Becky asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Freyan hesitated. I'll be fine." But she wasn't. Her hands were shaking as she wiped herself dry. Not from the cold. From being seen. A week later, Becky broke the tension. "I saw," she said suddenly, during a late evening study session when the world outside was dim and quiet. Freyan looked up from the book. "Saw what?" "That day. Under the table." Freyan froze. And then whispered, "I know. I didn't mean to see. I just did." Freyan said nothing. "I don't think it's weird," Becky added. "I just want you to know that." Freyan exhaled slowly. Her eyes were soft when they met Becky's. "Thank you," she said, her voice raw. Becky smiled gently. "You're still the hottest tutor on a bike. I mean, nerdiest. I mean." Freyan laughed. A real, full, warm laugh that lit up her entire face. It was the first time she looked free. By the end of the month, their sessions grew slower, more personal. Freyan told her about being intersex in a conservative household. About hiding under layers of formality and work. About her mom being the only person who never made her feel wrong. And Becky just listened. Sometimes she brought Freyan coffee. Sometimes she sat too close on purpose. One time she dared to touch her wrist when she laughed. And Freyan just stared at her like she was the most confusing, beautiful thing in the world. One evening, Becky showed up wearing laced black lingerie underneath her robe, half as a joke, half as a dare. Freyan saw the hint of lace under the slipping fabric, and her entire body tensed. "Becky." Her voice was strained. "Are you trying to do something?" Becky blinked innocently. "Trying to study?" Freyan looked away. Her throat moved as she swallowed hard. And then she stood. I should go. I'll see you tomorrow." But her ears were red again. And Becky, heart pounding, knew. "She likes me too."